All right, hey everyone, welcome back to another Wildwoods beekeeping chat. And tonight we are joined by Stan Gore from Texas Friendly Beekeepers, and we're very glad to have you. And before we get into any of the topics I wanted to discuss tonight with you, Stan, I was wondering if you could briefly share with us kind of who you are, kind of what you do, and kind of a little bit about yourself, kind of how you got started into beekeeping, and some of your backstory, if you could, before we get into some of our future topics for tonight's discussion.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks, Grayson. I appreciate you inviting me on here. It's I've heard a little bit about you. I don't know a whole lot about you, but I really appreciate what you're doing, and you seem like you got it going there. So congratulations, by the way. You know, my granddad was a beekeeper, and I'm kind of been off and on for 30 or so years. I lived in Alaska, and I lived in Montana, and a friend of mine had about 1,000 hives in Montana. And then I've always kind of been just kind of dangling. I was kind of a honey taster growing up with my granddad, so I wasn't really into beekeeping. But for the last good 10 years or so, I've been really diving in, and it kind of consumes you. And what I have now, I have like 100 hives, and we started this Facebook page, Texas Friendly Beekeepers, several years ago. And the reason we did is because if you get on a lot of the bee pages, that there's so much bad stuff going on there. People calling people names and arguing, and the new beekeepers, they just run scared, So we developed this page, and basically what it is, it's just what it says, and it's just not Texas. We have over 9,000 members, and it's private, so it's not a public page. And so my wife is the one who she kind of vets everybody out. If you're a Satan worshiper, you're probably not going to get on there,
Yeah.
But what it's kind of grown into, it's amazing. It's based on kindness and helping people out, and it's not about tooting your own horn so much and saying how many degrees you have or whatever. It's about helping each other be the most successful beekeepers they can be. And I love all the young people coming up in beekeeping. It's exciting. I know Cayman Reynolds. I know him a little bit. And I was at were you at Hive Life?
Yep, I was this year.
Okay.
I was there.
Yeah, we were over at the Hives for Heroes booth. Did you hear the cowbell going on over there?
I heard it a little bit. I would say I did.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I'm on. I'm on the board of Hives for Heroes, and we rescue these bees, and then we give them to first responders, and we mentor veterans. And how it works is, we assign you a mentor, and right now we have I think 2,300 mentees, and we have almost 900 mentors. So you can see there's a real need for mentors. So if anyone is interested in that, make sure you get a hold of me or get on hivesforheroes.com. And it's just a great way to help someone out that served our country, or fire department or police. So that's kind of what we do there. And it's a real blessing to me to be a part of that, and to mentor someone who has served our country, or in any capacity, whether you're a firefighter, police department, or whatever. But it's a good thing. So and where I am now, like I said, I had over 100 hives, and I basically I do a lot of forced abscons, and I don't buy any bees per se. I do raise a few queens, and we're basically, that page is to educate people. One of our things that we do is educating, and we equip, and the last one, encourage. So if we can encourage people, there's all kind of questions come up, and I think the thing with new beekeepers is that there's so much information out there that it becomes mind-boggling to them. And they basically, I think there's a stat, like 80% of new beekeepers in the first 3 years give up. And I want us to be a part of that percentage goes down. And that's just, helping the new people learn bee biology. And I think that's a real missing element in newer beekeepers. They just start stacking boxes, and all of a sudden you got a triple deep, and they don't want it anymore because it's too mean, and they don't know what's going on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Because a lot of times, on different places, whenever you're a new beekeeper, you don't know much, they'll throw you down and that kind of stuff. So I think that's a great thing to have, to support, encourage newer beekeepers, because whenever I was new, of course, all of us, they're like, first, 2 3 years we may think about giving up, but I'm sure we've all thought about that at some point, but I never
Sure.
did. Keep on doing it, keep on trying different ways, and then you'll be successful, as long as you keep on trying it. So I think that's a very great thing to have, and be able to support people, all that different kind of stuff. So that's very good, and be able to, because a lot of times we talk about it all the time, like you were saying, 2 3 year beekeepers, sometimes decide maybe not to keep bees or something. Maybe they get let down about something, or maybe they lost a hive or something. All that different kind of different things. There's many different things. Maybe they got discouraged by their bee club, or maybe something on different other pages, on
Yeah.
Facebook page, maybe even YouTube pages, and they get discouraged. So I think it's a good thing to have places to go to learn and support other beekeepers. So I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, and like I said, and we take really good care of the people that are on there. If we see anybody with negative comments, or some guy will say, "Hey, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard," that doesn't fly. We're there to encourage each other, and hopefully to teach them. And there's so many people on there. There's several thousand that are well seasoned. They're very kind people, and they just want to help people.
Yeah,
And I think I got that. Really, it kind of woke me up last year, going to Hive Live with Cayman Reynolds and Bob Benny and all those guys. It really opened my eyes to see how it can be done different. It's kind of a family feel. Did you
yeah,
did you experience that too? I mean, and everybody was smiling, and there wasn't like 50 teachers. There were just like some headliners, but the facility
yeah,
and just the atmosphere was just, man, I just can't wait to get back. And I hope it has
yeah,
an influence on our state bee clubs and our local bee clubs, because one thing you came and says it so well is that hive life is fun, and
yeah.
I'm into fun. You into fun, right?
Yeah, we're all into fun. Have somewhere to be able to go. Whenever we're at Hive Life, I can't wait to go back. It was pretty fun. There's a lot of people there, a lot of people to meet. And it was, fun. You were able to meet other beekeepers like on YouTube, like Bob Benny. You're
Hmm.
able to meet some other folks that are very good at teaching on YouTube, maybe even on Facebook or other places. You're able to meet them in person. So I think that's a very good thing. And I had a lot of fun at Hive Life. It was that was actually my first conference. I always tell people that was actually the first conference I ever went to. I've never been to any ever except for the Hive Life. So I definitely
Really?
plan on. Yeah, that's definitely because
Well,
I've never been to any ever.
yeah, you picked the right one, because without a doubt, it's the best I've ever seen. Do you belong to a
Yeah,
local club or anything there, Grayson?
yeah. Well, you see, that's one thing that we've been trying to go to. One we haven't yet. We were going to go to one. We were going to try to go to one this April because we're in Alabama and we have some other Alabama beekeeper little places to go to, but they're already sold out. So I guess there's not one till I guess next year, which is September or October is what it said. So we're too, it's just like a little small thing, but
Right.
they still ran out pretty quick. So we didn't have the time to get on that. So but we're going to try to get to one of these local clubs to go to and learn more things, meet other people who are local to our area. But for the time being, we haven't. But like I said, we were going to try to, which was I think it was April 20th, something like that. Don't
Uh-huh.
remember. I don't really remember the real time date. I think it was in Auburn, in Alabama. So but we were
Yeah.
late on that, so we weren't able to make that. But maybe in the future, sometime, maybe during summer, fall, depending, because I don't know whenever there are many other beekeeper associations out
Yeah.
there. But from what I know, that was the only one that I know of in our area. But there's a lot of different like local bee clubs, which are very good to go to and learn, and especially for those newer beginners, in my opinion. Especially because if you are somebody who wants to know something from the people who are from your area, then going to one of your local bee clubs is one of the best ways to learn more about for your area. But for
Yeah.
the simple question that we haven't gone to one yet, the only conference or beekeeping club I would say would be Hive Life. But we do plan on going to a club at some point here soon
Yeah.
locally. So yeah, that's kind of what what was going on with that. Got to two.
How many hives do you have, Grayson?
I have let's see. If I wanted to include all 9 halves, I could say 9. Some of those
No.
are queenless halves that I'm making splits out of.
Right.
But they're doing really good. I have a lot of strong ones and have a lot of younger splits that I did. Because now it's time of year for, I guess, your area, because you're in Texas, which I'm sure of, and we're down here in Alabama. We're all down south, so
Right.
it's just kind of, I went ahead and did some splits. I usually like to take like 5 frames with eggs and maybe 4 with some capped brood and put them in the 5-frame nuke and leave them for about maybe 4-6 weeks and then come back. They should have a you should have a mated queen.
Right.
You should have. If it doesn't, then you're gonna have to do something with it. You're either gonna have to put more eggs in the hive, or you're gonna have to just put a queen in there, introduce a new queen.
Right.
But that's how many hives I have, and that is including splits. I do have a swarm that I caught this year. It's doing extremely well.
Cool.
That's never a cool topic I wanted to talk about. We could kind of delve into for a second. So in your area, we got a quick question, and then we're going to continue with the topic I want to discuss. What part of Texas are you in, Stan?
All right, Central Texas, right around Brenham area. It's kind of like, just kind of about an hour and 15 minutes from Houston, but it's in the country, so it's pretty much. You ever heard of Bluebell ice cream?
I have.
No? Okay, well, that's where they make it. That's where they make it, Bluebell ice cream, right there in Brenham, Texas. Yeah, so central part of Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now that we know, because that's just a little quick question from a person watching the live chat. First, I wanted to the first topic I really wanted to discuss was including the swarming kind of thing. So, are you guys seeing any swarming down in Central Texas, or have you not really seen much in your area yet?
No, it's major. It's been going on for a couple of weeks. I've already caught 4 swarms, and
Really?
and they're just. We've had such a great spring. We've had some pretty good rains, and then the sunshine comes, and so it's going to be a bumper crop if it holds out. People are pretty excited, and their hives are just busting. So they better be splitting them up, or they're going to be hunting for them in the trees, in which we're getting a lot of swarm calls, and I'm always ready on the go. Whenever I get a call, I just drop everything and go get it, because they don't stick around too long, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I caught one. We're having a little swarming around here. Starting.
Really?
Actually, I caught one. I can't determine if it was a first-year swarm or a second-year swarm.
Right.
It was weird. I found it out of like a 5-gallon pail, a bucket. It's kind of funny how that happened. When the person who we caught it from was real local around our area, and the way he found it was accidentally put with like a little bulldozer or something. From what I know, accidentally bumped into the 5-gallon bucket and split it in half, and the started flying around. So and then they were exposed. So then I came down and picked them up, and
but it was a colony in there. It wasn't a swarm, though, right? I mean, they were inside with comb and everything.
It had comb, it had brood. So I suspect it was from last year. And if it opened and exposed, it was a few warm weeks. But if we got a cold snap, I don't know how good they'd do. They probably wouldn't really last too long. So it's good. I put them in like a 5-frame nuke and put everything up and tied up all the little, let's just say, the little extra comb on the frames, and they've been doing pretty good. The queen in there is phenomenal. I'm pretty impressed with how good she is at laying. She has like a colorful pattern on each frame, so that's pretty good.
That is cool.
That's what's going on down here with swarming.
I was going to tell you. I was going to tell you real quick. I had a swarm. A guy called me about a week ago, right? And he had a log that he fell over a tree, and so he said there's some bees in it. So I get there. And this is like 2 days later, he calls me. And so I get there and there's just a few bees. And I said, hey, if there were bees there, they swarmed, so just kind of be looking for the tree up in the trees and see where they are. Cause evidently the a lot of times when it hits the ground and it disrupts them so much, they can swarm. A lot of times they stay in the tree. But anyway, so 2 days ago I get a call. He goes, "Hey, there's a bunch of bees. Come and get them if you would." So I drive over there, and they're like 25 feet up in a tree, right? And so
Yeah.
my bucket thing that I got a big old paint rod there. What do you call the dang thing? Uh, Oh, it's a paint pole, where you attach the paint to it. So anyway, but I got a bucket attached, or like a 5-gallon water bucket. I have it attached on there.
Yeah.
So I get up there, as high as I could, and I get on a little log that he had there, and I tried to get on there, but I just can't reach it. But I can hit the branch. And so what I do is I hit the branch, right, and they
Yeah.
just come unglued. They were all everywhere. And then I started. You ever tanged before? Tang?
I haven't.
Okay. Well, I've done about a half a dozen of them. If you get the bees up in the air, you can like bang. They've been doing it since the 1800s, and they bang pots together, and it's something about the frequency or something that drives them down. And then
Okay.
I had a 5-frame nuke with a fresh comb in it, a little bit of nectar pollen, drawn comb, and everything. So it was kind of down below there. So I started tanging, and in a matter of like 5 minutes, those bees just kind of floated down, and they went
Really?
right into that swarm trap. So if you get them up in the air, you can tang them. Look it up and Google it. It's pretty interesting, and I've done several of 'em. People say, "Oh, that doesn't work." Well, I've done it a half a dozen times. I know it works. But then,
Yeah.
and I always get the queen, right? And then I put her in a little roller cage, and I put her inside on a frame with a rubber band, and then I just kind of leave her there for a day or two to get her, because a lot of times if they go in there, they don't like something and they'll take off again. Well, they won't leave her. And so I do that to get them situated, and then I'll come back. And I got all circle disc on mine to where I can just rotate the disc and where it's screened. And then I pick them up at dark, and they're all inside. And then I just rotate, and then I pick them, take them home. But it's fun. You ought to try it sometime. It'll
Yeah.
blow you.
Yeah, 'cause, we've had swarm calls where, they're in a top of a tree, in an oak tree, which, I'm sure, I don't know how long you could reach with a pole, but like a tall oak tree, like the tippy top of it, like
Oh,
right where the branches start swinging out, and they wanted us to remove it. But there's literally no way we could do that, because if we wanted to do that, we'd have to cut the tree down, and it was in a neighborhood, so that really wasn't an option that you could do, you know
yeah.
cut down a tree where it's public, where there could be cars going everywhere. So that really
Right.
could be an option if you did it right, but at the same time you'd have to cut down the tree to get to that swarm. So
I've seen some people get a shotgun and shoot the branch and break the
that too.
branch. You ever done
Yeah,
that?
I haven't. I haven't
Yeah.
been in that situation, but I'm sure in the next at least 10, 15, maybe even sooner, I'll have to do that, where there's a branch and it's too, because I know sometimes beekeepers will throw kind of like ropes and stuff over it. But if
Right.
that doesn't work, then you can result to, shooting it with a shotgun or something. But I've
Yeah.
saw that like on YouTube and stuff. But I've
You
saw that.
probably don't want to shoot a shotgun in the neighborhood, though. They probably frown on that, huh?
They probably won't. You probably won't do that. But if you're like out in the country like us, we live on 40 acres. Just
Oh,
kind of
wow.
private. So we could, if we had a swarm on our 40 acres, we could easily make sure they get down. Okay, we're
Sure.
not really in the neighborhood or anything. Just kind of private back here. So that's never a good thing, because whenever you look at my bee yard, if you see my videos and I'm out in the bee yard, you're gonna at least see a pine tree. And we have a lot of pine trees in our area, all around our house and in our bee yard. That's where I kind of got the nickname, Wildwoods Honeybee Farms, just
Ah,
because our apiaries in the woods. And I say that to almost every guest, not every guest, but that's because a lot of times beekeepers on other places will ask, "Where did you get that name from?" And I say, "Well, hence the name. We're kind of in the woods, and our bee yard's in the woods, so we're in the wild woods. So you kind of get the name phrase and start putting everything together and then figure it out. So that's kind of how we came up with that name. So that's a pretty cool thing.
I like it. It sounds great. You got your honey called that too? Your honey is called that,
Right?
Wildwood? Yeah?
That's right. That's what we call it. That's another thing. Our honey flows and stuff. We can usually our honey is probably like pine pollen, because that's a lot what we have, and I'm pretty certain that that's where we're getting it from. But you never can be certain with bees. Bees may get some other kind of pollen, but that's a big pollen in our area.
Oh yeah,
What kind
I've
of say that again?
I've heard that. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I do got one question resulting to the pollen. So what's your main I got a question from a certain beekeeper in one of my videos, and I thought we could both answer it. Is there a specific flavor that you're looking for in your honey, and what kind of pollen flows and nectar flows do you have in your area?
Yeah. Well, I've never really pinpointed it down. There's just so much. We have so
Yeah,
much flora in this area that it's, that's why we basically just call it wildflower honey.
yeah,
And our flow is typically April, May, and June, and then we usually harvest around the 4th of July. Now, and I'm only allowed to harvest honey in the spring. I can't do it in the fall, and I'll tell you why. We have a plant, and it's called snow on the mountain, and
yeah,
the honey from it makes a lot of honey, and the bees love it and all, but it kind of burns your throat. So
yeah.
it's not a real marketable honey. Some people say they like it. It tastes like jalapeno or something, but it'll irritate your throat. It's that hot. So I don't save fall honey. Do you have a good fall flow there?
We do. We have like goldenrod. Goldenrod's
Yeah,
a good honey thing for
yeah,
your bees. And we'll have pine pollen. Like most of the year, we'll have some kind of pollen. Even during winter, we'll see bees coming in with pollen. We're like, where did they get that pollen from? I don't see much out there, but bees will do that. They'll go out and find some kind of pollen. They'll scavenge for some kind of pollen. So that's a pretty cool thing. But we do have some good flows. Like we have goldenrod, maybe some other like wildflowers that but main thing during our fall flow is we have a lot of goldenrod. Like,
yeah,
we'll see it on the streets going across on the roads,
yeah.
country roads. It's just all on the fences, a lot of goldenrods, and bees love that stuff.
Yeah.
That's that's a big flow. And in the spring, we have a lot of wildflowers and a lot of, well, usually in fall, sometimes winter, and in the spring we'll have pine pollen. Sometimes during summer, it just all depends on how hot it is and if it rains any. You know,
Sure.
just those things are the things that just depends on. But usually in the spring, you can rely on that pollen to be there. But not all the time. Sometimes some pollen won't be there, and sometimes it will be next year. It's just one of the things with flowers and how they bloom.
Yeah.
But usually we can rely on a goldenrod during fall and other stuff during the spring. But for simpleness, we do have a good flow, and
Right.
all that different stuff. But we don't really go for the taste because a lot of times beekeepers want to do a specific flavor and name it exact the flower, but you have no idea where they're going to get it, so that's
Yeah.
pretty hard to do.
We have
So
a
you got
big tallow flow here, and
really,
that's a big honey maker there. And so and we have Yopon is
yeah,
really big here. So there's just a lot of things, and we have pollen pretty much in Texas, at least in Central Texas, pretty much all year long. There'll be some
yeah,
pollen somewhere. It doesn't mean it's great pollen, but we always kind of have that. You can see pollen coming in pretty much every month out of the year, and that's the thing about being in Texas instead of Minnesota.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially those
Hey,
beekeepers up north,
I was going
we
to
have,
ask you. I was going to ask you real quick. Do you have a source for sour wood honey?
that's one thing that I've been looking for and looking on. I'm not 100% sure. I'll
I
have
love.
to look that up, but I've heard that sourwood honey is pretty good.
Oh my
Like
God.
Bob Benny has, I know he has a lot from what I hear because we had Bob Benny on a chat a while back. It was
Did
fun,
you
and
really?
we had him on. I think it was, if I can remember the date correctly, it was December 19th last year, 2022, and it was fun. And we talked a little bit about he talked a little bit about sourwood honey, and I've heard about sourwood honey and how good it was, but I'm not really that sure if we have a nectar source for that of sourwood.
Yeah,
But we
I think
may.
it's pretty isolated. That's why it's so special. I ordered
Yeah,
some from Bob last year, and man, oh man, I've never tasted honey that good. I love it. So but it's in a certain part of the of Appalachian Mountain somewhere. I don't exactly know where, but tell you what, it's good. It's good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely heard a lot about it, and I'm sure it's a very, very, very good honey to I don't know if I've tried any because sometimes I don't look at labels, but usually our honey is like I'd say pine maybe. We may have some kind of sour wood, but I don't think in our area, from what I know, but maybe we do. I can't really say 100% sure because I'm not honestly 100% sure, but we may have a little of that, but usually we have like pine pollen
Yeah.
and some other stuff. But
But
we're having a lot of flowers now.
you have a lot
So
of
yeah,
flowers, don't you? You have a lot of flowers, don't you? Yeah.
we have a lot of flowers. A
Yeah.
lot of different wildflowers. I can't name all of them. I'm sure a flower guy who knows all about flowers and different kinds can name them out. But I can name some of them, just the ones that I'm most familiar with, but not the
Right.
ones that are just wild and I have no idea. So
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's good to know a little bit about just a little bit about what your bees may be getting. But of course, you can't be all that sure of what they're getting because they're gonna get anything, which we all know. But
Yeah. There's a place in at Texas A&M that you can send it to. I think it's like $80, and you can send them a sample of your honey, and they'll tell you exactly what's in it. I
really,
always wanted to do that, but I didn't want to spend the $80.
wow. Yeah,
But
definitely. Because
it might be fun to see what exactly is in the honey. I always tell them it's wildflower honey. That kind of covers all bases.
yeah, because you can incorporate that instead of saying this is exactly what it is. It's
Yeah.
hard to do that. I just label mine Wildwoods honey, maybe Wildwoods beekeeping honey, something like that.
Yeah.
I figure out something, or I'll say, like yourself, wildflower honey. That just covers it up all pretty quick. Just says straight out of the bat, it's wildflower honey. It's different kind of pollens, different kind of nectars.
Sure.
So that's one thing that I want to discuss, and that kind of different thing. So I think there's a lot of pollen going up around. I'm sure about that because we're having a lot of pollen coming in. Like a lot of times, like I was out there today and looking in the hives, and they're coming in with a whole bunch of pollen. The splits I'm doing, and some of the other stronger hives, and some of the other stuff that we have, we're seeing a lot of pollen,
Yeah.
being brought in, and that's definitely stimulating the queen and to lay eggs and that kind of stuff. So that's pretty good. My Italians are doing a little more, laying and stuff more than my Russians. So that leads me on another topic that I think we should slowly discuss. So
Uh-huh.
whenever you have 100 hives, and maybe a little more, maybe a little less, somewhere around 100, and in that 100 hives, what kind of a breed of bees, like Russian or Italian, do you run, or do you have a specific one that you like, or does not really matter to you, or
Yeah,
which
I
breed, yeah,
I do hundreds of removals, and so I get just feral bees. I don't,
yeah,
but I do kind of endeavor, and a couple of friends of mine are really good queen breeders and other, but I don't do like Italians or Russians and all that. I kind of think it's cool that people do that, but most of mine are just mutts. And
yeah,
what I do is I'll take these bees and I'll test them out for 2 years. I'll see what they're doing, see how they're making it and everything else. And then if they're aggressive or if there are any kind of things that they're bad traits, I requeen them. And I have some hives, some breeder queens kind of that I specifically, graft from. And then I just keep, I have a bunch of nukes that I keep small little colonies in there with the good queens. And if something goes haywire, and anymore, as far as treatment and all, I don't really treat per se anymore. I've done just about everything like that. But if I see a problem with that, I just start requeening because I have
yeah,
that availability. Because that when you get that brood break and you get a new queen in there, it solves a lot of issues. And Corey Stevens, right?
yeah. We do.
Corey,
We've talked to him
yeah,
about that.
I'm getting some queens from him this spring
That'd be
too. I'm
cool.
excited. I'm excited about those. And I got a
Yeah,
couple of friends that they only have, they haven't treated in 10 years, and their bees are like, I mean, people say, well, there's no such thing. They all get Varroa. Yeah, they do get Varroa, but they are tolerant. There is a breed that is tolerant of Varroa. So, I've got friends that breed those queens, and then I'll breed from them. and it's just fun. You like I said, but most of mine are feral, and they're proven out, and some of those make the best queens. You know, they're just wild bees. But I've heard some interesting things about the Russians. How do you like those? The Russians?
Yeah, they're pretty good. You know, I really, you know, so for me, each, you know, thing is, you know, a little different. Each one is good for a certain thing. So the Russians I have found are really good at making honey and making honey. So if you're a honey seller, a Russian bee may do very good for you. But if you're
Really?
somebody who's raising queens, or maybe you're trying to make more splits, then an Italian is very good for that, because I've been testing out different things, and I've seen that with my Italian bees, I'm able to make very good splits and keep most of the bees stay in there. But then while the other Russians, no matter how many bees are in there, they're gonna take off. But either way or another, if you make a split, the bees, some of the older bees are gonna go back to the original hive if you don't put a queen in there. Maybe even if you don't put a queen, maybe even if you do put a queen, they'll still go back to their original hive. That's just kind of how everything works. But I have found that Italians are very good they are good at making honey. But what I was doing was I put a super on one of my hives, on the Russian hive that I have. I'm just guessing. I don't have really a big proof that I have those are Russians, but I'm just kind of guessing, saying, well, they're kind of spicy and they're pretty good at making honey. I'm just going to kind of guess they're kind of a little Russian bee. That's just what I'm kind of figuring, you know, because there's not much others that are really spicy. Of course, Italians could be spicy, but either way or never, I really think it's a Russian bee. But what I really do like about it is the super had drawn foundation, and within 4 days they had, like, let's say, a full frame of nectar, which looked like it was ready to be capped. So in the next week or two, depending on how fast they are and how warm of weather we have and all that different stuff, they should have that full super filled up, and it should be ready to extract. And that's to have them talk to you about, is the one I'm going to use for my honey production, or sell a little honey, keep a little honey, because we go for honey a lot, pretty fast. So we like to keep up to date and keep the honey in there, and, you know, eat some of it, and then make a little cash off the side and sell them.
Yeah.
So that's
how much honey do you usually make a year? What's an average for you as far as honey wise?
So last year, let me think. I think it was last year or the year before last, we extracted from a hive, and they did pretty good, actually. You know, the first year last year I'm talking to you about, I extracted a full deep. It had full honey in there, capped to the bone. It was like full. It was pretty. They did a real good job, and those are the Russian bees that I was doing. It was full up to the max. So what I did was I extracted every single bit of it, except for the frames that had a little brood on it. I extracted that, put it back on a hive, and then within about 2 weeks, they filled that thing up again, and it's hurting my back. So they're real good honey makers. So if I had to say, I'd say about 90, 80, maybe 100. Just depends on how many supers I get off.
Yeah.
You know, I'd say about 100 pounds a year, maybe. You know, just all depends really on how. Because now that I'm at 9, I may even be able to, you know, make even 200 pounds. It just all depends. But that's usually the thing that I like to go to, about 100, 120 pounds, maybe. Yeah. That's kind of what we make. What about you? What's your percentage on honey each year?
You know, I'm not a huge honey maker, but I usually get 500 to 800 pounds. Yeah. You know, but I don't really try to make the honey, but I do a lot of cut comb honey, where I kind of do a starter strip, and then like a third of a strip of foundation in the middle, and then I can get the cutting, you know, the 4x4 inch cutter on each side. Yeah. And they have the little plastic little containers. You can just, you know, press that in there, and people really like the cut comb honey a lot, and I really like doing that. But when do you harvest? What month and average, do you know?
So usually I'll extract and make honey, I'd say around spring. So what I usually like to do is I like to do it either before or after I treat, you know, or even put supers on before or after I treat, you know, for Varroa mites. And, you know, what I usually do in spring, and I like to do it sometimes in fall, but my go-to is around April, maybe May, maybe early to mid-June. Sometimes I
Really?
like to do it in fall, but that's the main things that when I extract
Yeah,
in the
that's
days.
yeah. Ours is usually around the 4th of July. You can kind of do it by clockwork. So yeah, we're looking forward to a good year. We
Yeah.
had a not so good year last year. It's just like farming. Every year is different, and just
Your
kind of
crop may be good, your crop may be bad.
yeah.
So that's how it
But we're,
goes.
but we're looking forward to. How much honey do you have to leave the bees in the winter where you are?
So usually you don't have to leave them much. So like the Russian hive I talked to you about that had that full deep, I left one deep on, and they probably only consumed just a little bit of it. Like coming
Oh,
out of winter, I lift that thing up. It felt like what it did whenever I went into winter. So I mean, we really don't need too much honey. But if you're going to extract all of it, I'd say you'd only need a super or two to get you for winter. If you have a big hive that has a lot of bees and taking up a lot of your resources, then you probably will need two, maybe one deep with full of honey for them. But if you're in a northern location, you probably need to feed some kind of
yeah,
something. But if I have like a single deep, or if they don't have as much, I'm gonna feed them something like sugar
right.
brick or something like that, just to kind of
Yeah,
give them by, just as a little resource plan, or something to make sure they don't run out of food, because bees can starve pretty quick. You always see them whenever their heads are
yeah,
sticked into their little cells. That means they starved out. So that's kind of what I kind of do with how much honey I leave on. And I'm
yeah.
sure that's similar to some of the other beekeepers down here in Alabama. But what about you? How much honey do you have to leave on your hives when going to winter?
Yeah, going into winter, we usually have to, the ballpark around here is like 30 pounds. You know, they
Yeah.
they don't need a whole lot, but they do need that 30 pounds. And we all, you always do the lift test, during the winter, just make sure that they have food. And we also used a soft sugar brick that we use in the, like uh, January, February type of thing, where it's kind of an emergency backup if they blow through. If we get some really warm days, those bees are moving. And that when they're moving, they're consuming, they need energy. So they're eating more. So there's nothing worse than opening a hive and they got starved bees, so
Oh
that's
yeah,
the
definitely.
soft sugar brick will save their lives,
Yeah,
it's a supplement. Yeah.
yeah,
We-
definitely. What exactly what I'm always saying, that as long as you have, even though maybe you think that they have a lot of honey, maybe it gets like a real cold snap and maybe you're out of town or something, and your bees are consuming everything very fast. If they
Yeah.
eventually run out, it's good to have something on there just in case, to let them eat a little bit more until maybe when you get back from out of town, you can go back out there and give them more food,
Yeah.
more something else to supplement them to get them through, winter, the rest of winter. So it's definitely, I really do like to feed a little supplement. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll just sit a little block sugar brick on top of the hive with a little, let's just say like you can even do like a little small little, what do you call those little things? Just basically like a super, cut down a little bit.
A
I forgot
shim.
exactly. A shim, a feeder shim. That's right. I forgot what the name was of that thing. But a lot of times beekeepers will do that. Or if you have like a big sugar brick, you do like a super. That's what sometimes I do. Like sometimes
Yeah.
I have like sugar bricks about this tall. Let me see if I can get on the camera, like about this tall, something like that. Just all depends. 4 pounds, 4 pound sugar brick is what I usually
Yeah.
do.
There's
So
there's another way too, the mountain camp method where you put
that too.
newspaper, you put sugar. Well, I found out, like, if people they're like an emergency, they don't know what to do. You can put like a little 4-pound bag of sugar, leave it in the bag, and you just
That's
kind of
exactly what I was doing.
stab it
That's
with your
exactly.
knife and flip it over, and it keeps the sugar intact instead of all over the place. Because if you get a lot of sugar on there, they'll carry that sugar out if it's not cold enough. They see it as foreign. But if you leave it in that bag, it hardens, and then they just kind of
That's
munch on it.
exactly what I did. What I did
Yeah,
was I just took a 4 pound little sugar bag, put a little
yeah,
water in there, stir it up a
right.
little bit, and then maybe put some slots in the bottom, set it in there, and leave that in there. And then once, that's similar to the mountain cat method, but it's so much more easier. And I
Yeah.
was talking about that method on some other beekeepers chat or somewhere else, and they're like, I never heard anybody do that before. So, it's not really a hard method to, leave it in the bag, but it is something that should be
Yeah.
considered.
I
I think
think
it's really
I think it works great. If you leave it in there, sometimes you open it up and they even ate the bag, they're just chewing
yeah.
all over it and everything.
Yeah, but I've had that happen. They'll just kind of chew for the bag, and then
Yeah.
then they'll start eating it, and then start chewing for more bag, and eventually they'll have all. Of course, I don't think they're going to consume the bag. You never know, but most likely they're just going to chew it up and throw it on the ground as trash or something. So
You know,
that's
uh,
I don't say that again.
uh, Another thing we do, like if it gets in the wintertime, you'll have like a frame of honey that's kind of, it's capped and it's kind of a
Yeah,
little bit hard. You can just scrape that with your fork just a little bit, just scrape it a little bit and then set it right next to the brood. And that way
yeah,
they can eat it a lot easier. And it's kind of a good method. Yeah.
yeah.
Go
That too. I think that's a good method. There's a lot of different methods for feeding. You know,
Yeah.
that's something that I like to do. I like to just give them a little food just in case. Sometimes it's hard to give them a lot of food whenever you're a sideliner, you're a bigger beekeeper, and you have a lot more hives to go to. That could be more, but at the same time, you still do want to make sure that you have a good, nutrients plan on your hives, just in case.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen. But that's what I like to really do. Like to use those sugar bags. Everybody never heard of that, and they always told me that was a real cool idea that they never heard anything like it. So that's what I was kind of doing, and
Yeah.
I did it for a little bit, and I did like it. Bees liked it. Bees would go up there and just kind of start eating it. I've had them chew through the bag, and they do that all the time. But that's not really a big problem.
No,
For
no.
that thing.
And I use I'm switching all over to Apamaze, and so with the Apamaze, you can take the feeders out of the Apamaze, the one that comes with it. You can take those out in the winter, and a soft sugar brick or a bag like that little small bag will fit right in there with the lid. It works really good. Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely works as well. All that different kind of solutions for that. But now I got a few more topics, and then because we're already at the 43-minute mark.
All
So the
righty.
next thing I wanted to discuss about is treating for the Varroa mite and all that different stuff. I'm sure we all hear about it. So one thing I wanted to ask you: is there a specific thing that you like to treat your bees, or do you not treat your bees, and just kind of about that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a real interesting topic because I've done, just about every treatment there is, oxalic, Apagard, Apivar. I've done all these things, but I'm getting more and more, like I was telling you, is that, kind of letting the bees, if you get a good genetics, there's bees out there, no matter what someone tells you there's bees that are tolerant. They'll still have Varroa, but they have a way of they're tolerant to the viruses, because that's what the main thing, what Varroa gives them, is those viruses. But if you get a hive that has an incredible amount of Varroa, there's nothing wrong with oxalic acid, just a vapor to get those paretic mites there down, and then just keep an eye on them. But if they get too much, have you used Apagard before? Do you like that or not?
Yeah, I've tried a few different treatments. Main thing I've really have been fond of is Apivar. I've tried Apagard. I think whenever I was treating it, I was probably treating it in the wrong weather. Maybe because I've never really used much of Apagard. I tried it a little bit. What happened was I was using the sachets, the little 4-pack sachets, and what was I think it was like 25 grams or something like that of
Right.
Apagard. Small
25
ones
grams.
for one half, and whenever I put it in there, one of the sachets on the little thing, it froze up. I don't know if that's supposed to happen. Maybe something to do with the temperatures. It just kind of froze up like how it would like a sugar brick would, like where it's soft and then it just kind of freezes, crystallized. I'd say, is that normal, or have you seen anything like that, or is it supposed to stay normally soft like it did came out of the packaging?
You mean the soft sugar brick you're saying?
That's right. Like
Yeah.
like the little sachet, how like where it comes out of the little sachet, or it's like, let's just say it's kind of like whenever you make sugar bricks, it's kind of nice and thick, nice and soft. But then once you leave it there, the apple guard kind of starts to crystallize and freezes up on top of the thing where you kind of put your finger on it. You can't do that. Is that normal, or is it something you do?
All those things have temperature ranges, and you got to be real strict about them, so they're effective. So if it's too cold, you don't use this. If it's too hot, you don't use this. So anymore, the mites are at the highest peak in August here. Is that they're the same where you are around August?
Yeah,
That's where the
definitely.
peak mite. So I always do mite washes just to see where I am, and I don't really get upset if it's I get 6 mites or 8 mites, but I just kind of watch them to see how the bees are doing, because, if you listen to Corey Stevens and some of these guys, I got friends that raise queens. One of them has done it 10 years. The other one is 12. And then one of them is 20 years, and they've never treated. And so I think the big question we all have to ask is like, why aren't all their bees dead? Because they have the genetics that their bees aren't dying. So why wouldn't we want that instead of spending all the money on, all these different treatments? I'm not saying don't treat, you can do whatever you want to. People are going to do that. But, it's one of those things I think we really have to explore more and try things, I mean, there's a reason why these hives, these colonies are living that long without treatment. So you can't say that they're all going to die. And I've heard some pretty smart people say that if you don't treat them, they're going to die. That's just not true. They can, but
it's not always going to.
It's getting so much. It's programmed in us by whoever. I don't know. Money has a big key in it, but it's kind of programmed in the beekeeper that you got to do this, you got to do that, or they're all going to die. But then you have people that aren't doing that, and their bees are alive. And that's the question I have. Answer me that. Not many people have given an answer. It's just like, well, I don't know. That's but it's true. Yeah. So have you any VSH genetics or different kind of treatment-free bees or not?
So you see, that's a good topic. You see, this year I'm expecting to get like a VSH queen from a friend on the YouTube channel. Wanted to send me one, so he's gonna be sending me one second week of May, so pretty soon. And we're gonna try out VSH and see how it does. And I've heard a lot of great things about it, and I really want to try it out. In terms of treatment free, I have done a lot. Thing is, last year was the first year I ever treated for Varroa mites. I had some Apivar strips, and I thought I'd just go ahead and use them and treat it and see how it worked. And it seemed to be pretty effective, and it kind of helped with my bees going through winter. This last winter was one of my best seasons yet. I went in with like 6 hives. I came out with about 5. So I only lost one, and the one I lost was just weak. It couldn't really stand back too cold weather. But in terms of, I had a Russian hive that I didn't treat, and it survived for about 2 years. This is probably the second or third year. It did pretty good, and I was pretty surprised. And I never treated it. I did nothing with it. It was a pretty good hive. Right now I'm re-queening that hive just because for some reason the queen isn't really doing well. Just I was looking into cells. She wasn't laying or anything. So right now I'm in the verge of re-queening them. Because I like to have, really good queens in my hives. If I see one that's not really laying good, then I just like to, main thing for that, I think, is really just mating. I recently, started a second bee yard for my mating to get them to kind of have 1 yard over here, 1 yard over here. That's kind of so then the drones and bees and the queens can intercept, and I have better mating, hopefully. So we're going to see how that all plays out. I think the main thing why some of my queens are no good, and some others are the mating. A lot of times, what will happen is the queen will only mate with one drone, and she'll lay good for a little bit, and then she'll, eventually wear out, and she won't be a really good queen. So I think that's just one main thing. But, overall, it's, I really did like those Russian genetics, and I still have some of those. I really can't tell you for sure of the ones I have. I do know I have Italian and Russian. That's the two main lines I have, and soon going to have some Italian. So I'm soon going to have some VSH lines. So that's going to be pretty interesting to see.
Yeah.
But overall, I do have, some hives that have been able to survive treatment free. So to answer that question, I do.
I would really. Have you listened to Corey much on YouTube? Corey
I
Stevens.
have.
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah. So I think he's really on to something, and I think he's already sold out for this year. And he sells, Corey, he sells virgins, and so and he ships them to you the next day, and he's got a really good way for them to accept them. He lets them go, hopelessly queenless. What he does, he doesn't put the queen there right away. He kind of wait. I think it's 7 days, and then he goes in there and he tears all the cells down, and now they have no way to make a queen. And so when you introduce that virgin in there, they accept her, and it's been like really highly successful. So anyway, he's a good guy. Smart.
Yeah, definitely. I heard a lot about that, and we had him on a chat, and we learned a little bit more. We talked a lot about VSH because I'm getting that VSH queen. I need to know more about it, and that chat was very informative, and learned a lot of different stuff about those different kind of lines. This is gonna be my first year trying one out, so we're gonna see how well it goes, and if it goes pretty good, I'm gonna try to start raising some queens this year. Right now, I'm more focused on kind of growing the yard instead of raising queens, just because I'm trying to grow it up. And if I have enough time, or I'd say around May, first week of May, I'm gonna try to start a little raising some queens. If I'm not ready, first I need to build up my apiary, kind of get more hives in, get more, more bees to be able to carry on those, carry on like the stars and the things, and then it may not be this year whenever I start queen rearing. I do have all the equipment, but that's a good thing that I already have all the equipment, and I already have all the stuff. So then if I can't do that queen rearing this year, I can always do it next year. But it just all depends on how everything goes and how quick I can get them to, kind of raise my bee yard a little more. So that's kind of how it's, doing different stuff.
Once you get into grafting your own queens, I don't think there's anything like it. I mean, to the whole process of you getting the 1-day-old larva, and you put it in a cell, and and you put it in a hive, and they make this queen. You pull it and you put it in an incubator, and it's amazing to raise your own queens like that. And so you haven't done grafting yet or anything, right? But
I have not yet.
Yeah, I bet you'd be good at it.
Yeah, I always say I'm good at small objects. We're gonna see, how good I am with that kind of stuff. I'm usually good with like little small mini things. So we're gonna see how well that goes. I expect I'm gonna be good, but I'm guessing for the first few tries it may not be all that well. But we're just gonna see. We're gonna see.
Well, I can sure tell your passion though, and that's Grayson, and that's what really you can see it. You have passion for bees, and it's pretty encouraging. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. And that's why I do some of this YouTube stuff, just to kind of share some of the stuff while I'm doing, and maybe share some knowledge and good information, and different different things. And I think that's good to share information and do it in a good way. Share it, and people can on this YouTube channel. I'm not the only one who's learning. People who's watching my YouTube channel. It's not the only ones who are learning. I'm learning stuff all the time, and stuff from the people who are watching. So that's another good thing. Learn and teach, and kind of circle that around, and you get up pretty high. So,
I make a lot of teaching slides. Like there'll be a topic come up, how to introduce a virgin or whatever. I'll get on there, and I've got a Mac here, and I kind of make a slide, and it's basically I'm teaching myself, but I'm also putting it out there so people can learn. And what amazes me, Grayson, is that how much every day you learn something. Doesn't that kind of blow you away? It's like, I get to a point where I know pretty much all of it. I don't know diddly. I've been doing it. but it's fun because I'm interacting with people, you learn something if if you listen from guys that have been doing it for a long time, what makes them successful, and then just duplicate that. You know,
Yeah,
that's why.
that's definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely. 'Cause, like even though I've been keeping bees for this is my 7th season, I don't know everything. So it's always a great thing to learn and
yeah,
learn more about bees, and that's learning is where the fun is.
yeah.
That's the
You
main thing.
talk about people that that put on the airs that they know everything. I usually make a wide circle around them
Yeah,
because they don't know everything.
yeah,
We learn something every day, and it's
yeah,
encouraging to share that knowledge too, and then people can try it. We got a thing, we say on here on Texas Friendly, you do you and I'll do me. If you do
yeah,
it that way and you're successful, man, that's awesome. But don't tell me
definitely.
that I'm doing it wrong when I'm successful too doing it. And there's so many ways to do bees, right?
Definitely. That's one thing I always say is even though something may work for me, it may not work for you. Even though you know for queen rings, some method may work for you and may not work for me. Great that something's working for you. The way that you put in all that different stuff. So I definitely think it's a great way to learn different methods and be able to teach other people new methods. At the
Sure.
same time you're learning stuff and the other person's learning, so you definitely earn different perspectives on different things, like raising queens. I was watching some other people's videos like Cayman Reynolds and some
Yeah,
other people, Bob Benny, and all of them had some really great methods, and I really enjoyed. And each one, I didn't think one was better than the other. Each one has its things of why you should do it and why you may want to do something different. Like
sure.
like the starter slash finisher is like a basic method for beginner beekeepers like myself, just to do like handful of queens. But then you can go to like you can use cloak boards. You can use
Uh-huh.
cloak board. I heard a lot of beekeepers doing that. Like at first starting the starter and then switching it and putting queen excluder, and in between and put the grafts up on the top. Make sure queen's not up here, move her down to the bottom. There's a lot of different methods,
Yeah,
and I really like that and learn a lot more different things. So that's one of my favorite things about beekeeping is
yeah.
learning about bees and all the different things.
Sure. There's a technique I want to share with you real quick. It's a good friend of mine. He does it. I don't know if he invented it, but I think he did. It's they call it the Ernie Shuffle, and what it
Yeah,
is you have a great queen in this box, right? And so
yeah,
you want more of her, and so all you do is you get another small, like a 3-frame box or something. You put it on top of the original box. Well, you get the queen out of the mother hive, and you place her with the frame of, you pick it up, she's on a frame of brood. Well, you put that in the 3-frame box that's going to be on top with the frame of food just for 7 or 8 days. That's all the food they need. Then you go back 7 or 8 days, and what's cool about it is you open that box and there'll be like 10, 15 queen cells, right? Because they
yeah,
were queen. Well, then you pull that out, and then you put the original queen back in the mother hive, and they
yeah,
accept her. Even though she's been gone 7 days, they still accept her. And now you got a frame of cells that you can use
yeah.
for anything. It works really well.
Yeah, I've
You,
definitely heard of that, and that's
yeah,
a great way. I think, like be able to raise queens without and make splits without grafting
without
is
grafting. Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's the main perspective of it, and I really like that. I tried it out, and I did it a little bit ago. Let's see, it was a few weeks ago, and I think the main
uh-huh.
reason why it didn't work is because I did it way too early. I did
Uh,
it. It got cold and it really didn't work all that well. But now, for some weird reason, that queen, the old have that virgin queen wasn't there, and the last time I checked, they had more queen cells verging up there. And the day I went out there was at least 10, 11, 12 capped cells on the frame. And right then, I could have made some splits out of that. I could have
oh
easily
yeah,
done that, but I didn't just because I was in a rush because I had other things to do. So I just decided just to leave it
yeah.
alone,
I hear you.
because I wasn't in the position to start because it was like kind of like later in the day. I'd say about 5 o'clock. I didn't have the time to make 9, 7, 5 more splits. So I just decided I'm just gonna leave them alone. I'm just gonna put them up, and I'll just let them hatch, and whatever they do, they'll do whatever they need to do. At least they'll have some kind of queen. So
Sure.
that's what's going on there.
Yeah.
All right. Method. Well, I guess we're here at an hour. If anybody missed some of the other stuff from the beginning of the chat, you can always get back and rewatch it. We appreciate you. Appreciate Stan coming on here, talking to us for about an hour, maybe a little more. You know, I think it was a very informative chat, and I think everybody appreciate you for sparing your time. So we appreciate you, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, and we'll catch you on the next one.
You're doing a great job, Grayson. I support you.
Thank you.
You take care. Bye-bye.
You take care. Good night.
Bye-bye.